It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. And I'm not talking about Tale of Two Cities. I'm talking about 91 Topps baseball. So this is Ari Rao for ThePit.com Market Movers Report. So this particular card, the 1991 Topps PSA 10 Chipper Jones, this is the only card that you are looking for from the 91 Topps set. The only really good rookie in the set. In fact, if you look at the PSA Sports Market Report, you will see that it is the only card listed on their market report. So these prices might be these prices are a little bit out of date, but at the time that this report was compiled, a PSA 10 of this card was only selling for about $22. And we'll take a look at the uh, the population report. So as you can see, there's 10,000 of these that have been graded by PSA, and there's 5,449 PSA 10s. So this card is graded pretty well. So about more than half of these cards have come back as a PSA 10. So you have pretty much a 50-50 chance to get this card in a 10, especially one that's well centered. So, and then you could also get a 9. But as you can see by the sports market report, this card, in 8 or 9 is really not even worth the cost of grading. So anyway, so the thing about this card, so of course Chipper Jones, one of the best #1 picks of all time, went on to have a long career with the Braves, the Atlanta Braves, and he was a great switch hitter. He was very patient. His defense wasn't legendary, but he certainly got the job done at third base and in left field. Jones, one of the most beloved players of his generation, and as the baseball card hobby has continued to grow, this card has definitely become a lot more sought after. Now, there is one thing that I must say about the 91 Topps set, and that is that there is a parallel set to 91 Topps. And as you'll see here, the Chipper Jones Topps Desert Shield. So Desert Shield was a set that was created for the troops overseas fighting in the Desert Storm conflict back in the early 90s. And so this card is basically exactly the same card, but it does have a symbol on it. You can't really see it in the picture, but right under the #1 pick symbol, there is a Desert Shield logo. And so cards with this logo are considerably more rare. The print run was much lower for these cards. And so if we take a look at the population of this, first we'll look at the SMR price guide. So this card actually, in PSA 10, has sold for as much as $10,000. Even a 9 can sell for $1,100, and an 8 can sell for $500. Because of course it is it is the biggest card in the set. But the thing about Topps Desert Shield is pretty much any star in the set at the time, his PSA cards are graded cards are valuable. As you can see, there's only 31 of these in PSA 10, 148 of these in PSA 9, and 250 of these in PSA 8. So even if you were to get one of the PSA 6 or PSA 7 copies, those are fairly rare as well. There is some value to those cards. So as I said, the only difference between the Desert Shield cards and the regular Topps 91 cards is that logo. So it's interesting because Topps 91 was, has considered one of the least valuable sets of all time. People do collect, the Ken Griffey Jr. card, the Nolan Ryan card. There are some cards in the set that people do still collect. But 91 Topps it was not a good year for rookies except for Chipper Jones. And of course, because Jones had such a great career, his card is very highly sought after. So as you can see, they're much, much rarer. About 10 times as rare as the regular 91 Topps. So, and as I think I already said, this card actually sold quite a few copies yesterday on the pit. This is the April 21st. So on the 20th, we had quite a few of these sell. I think it was maybe 6 or 7 of them. Transactions of this card. So as you see, you can still get a copy for as little as $33. So this card is definitely on the rise. I mean, for a long time, it was a $20-25 card. There are a lot of these in existence, but again, you know, that population does dry up after a while. If you have, I mean, I'm sure that there's far more than 3,000 people that are going to want to own this card. Um, 5,000 people, they're going to want to own this card in the long run. So, this is a card that definitely, the PSA 10 is very, very widely, easily available. As far as the future price of this card, I mean, because it's so common, um, I mean, there probably are still plenty of raw copies out there. They're still waiting to be graded out there in the world. So the population of this card could go up over time, but probably not a ton. And being that the PSA 10 is only worth $33 or 35, maybe, this card maybe you could get potentially $40 for it. Then the next couple of months as the card market continues to grow. Um, but I think in the long term, because this is the only card in the entire set that is worth getting graded at all. Um, unless it's of course a Desert Shield, because this card is so valuable. From that set. And you do have a well-centered, pretty much pristine copy of this card. It would be worth getting graded for the long term because, of course, you can get these raw very, very, very inexpensively. So yeah, what do you think of this card? Of course, there are other Chipper Jones cards that you could get that are maybe a little bit more valuable. But of course, it's just kind of funny that Desert Shield basically saved the 91 top set by basically putting these cards into a much rarer stamped variety. So obviously you would want to be chasing the Desert Shield copies, even in a PSA 8. Those cards are very valuable. Um, but so as I said, this was the heart of the junk wax era, overproduction. um, just so many of these were printed. I mean, millions of these were probably printed. Especially just this set was just so overprinted, and as I said, it hasn't aged well. It's actually a decently designed set. There's nothing wrong with it. It was their 40th anniversary set, and just because there just weren't really very many good rookies at the time. It just a set is basically defined by any sports card set is defined by its rookies and prospects. And yeah, maybe there's a star card or two that continue to have value long term, but really with this set really 91 tops. It's not the worst top set, of course, from that era. It's not even close, but um, I think there are a couple that are even worse than that. But 91 was pretty bad. It might be the worst actually. Now that I think about it. But yeah, so Chipper Jones, great player, and this is a great card. Has him in his Braves uniform, so great card. Of course, at the time he was a shortstop, which of course didn't stay a shortstop, but great switch hitter. He was just one of the best players ahead of his era. And really probably of all time, really. And I think that during his play days, he was popular, but I think he was a little bit overshadowed by some of the other superstars of the day. But over time, I think people have really come to appreciate what he did and his numbers and and his longevity. And he stayed with one team his entire career too, which is not that's an accomplishment in itself. So I can see this card eventually gaining a lot in value over the years. All right, so that'll be it for this episode of Sports Card Market Movers Report. Let me know what you think of this card. Do you have another Chipper Jones card, rookie card that you like that you might prefer to this card? I think I really like the Bowman as well. The Bowman, of course, holds more value than this card. But this card, in particular, I think might still be a little bit undervalued, and so it doesn't really surprise me to see that this is a card that has sold a lot recently. All right, so take care, everybody, and happy collecting. We'll be back with more sports card market reports.